राम 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 सीता राम राम राम।
हरे 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 राम 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 सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम।
सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। बोलो भाई सब संतन की
जय।
श्री राम जय जय राम। लाउडली श्री राम जय जय राम।
श्री राम जय जय राम।
श्री राम जय जय राम।
राम जय जय राम।
श्री 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 राम जय जय राम।
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 प्रिय सियावर रामचंद्र की पवन सुत हनुमान की
जय।
बोलो भाई सब संतन की सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की। जय जय राम जानकी राम।
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 रघुकुल भूषण राजा राम।
रघुकुल भूषण राजा राम।
रघुकुल भूषण राजा राम।
रघुकुल भूषण राजा राम।
जय जय राम जानकी राम।
जय जय राम जानकी राम।
श्री राम जय जय 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 राम।
जय जय राम जानकी राम।
जय जय राम जानकी राम।
जय जय राम जानकी राम।
जय जय राम
जानकी राम
जानकी राम
जानकी राम
जानकी राम
सियावर रामचंद्र की
जय
पवन सुत हनुमान की
जय
बोलो भाई सब संदन की
जय
सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
Hari Om everyone. Can you all hear me and see me clearly? Awesome. It feels like there was a long break. About 3 weeks. So after 3 weeks we re-begin and we'll continue with the, sorry about that. We will re-begin the samvada between Sati and Parameshwara. The conversation is between Maitreya Ji and Vidura. And then this conversation, you know the list, right? The entire list of speaker and spoken. So we will get to that after we have done with our Lalita Sahasranamam chanting. So let us begin with that. Let's start with the invocation. सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ ऐं ह्रीं श्रीं सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् अरुणां करुणातरङ्गिताक्षीं धृतपाशाङ्कुशपुष्पबाणचापाम् अणिमादिभिरावृतां मयूखैः अहमित्येव विभावये भवानीं ध्यायेत् पद्मासनस्थां विकसितवदनां पद्मपत्रायताक्षीं हेमाभां पीतवस्त्रां करकलितलसद्धेमपद्मां वराङ्गीं सर्वालङ्कारयुक्तां सततमभयदां भक्तनम्रां भवानीं श्रीविद्यां शान्तमूर्तिं सकलसुरनुतां सर्वसम्पत्प्रदात्रीं सकुङ्कुमविलेपनामलिकचुम्बिकस्तूरिकां समन्दहसितेक्षणां सशरचापपाशाङ्कुशाम् अशेषजनमोहिनीमरुणमाल्यभूषाम्बरां जपाकुसुमभासुरां जपविधौ स्मरेदम्बिकाम्। ॐ श्रीमाता श्रीमहाराज्ञी श्रीमत्सिंहासनेश्वरी चिदग्निकुण्डसम्भूता देवकार्यसमुद्यता उद्यद्भानुसहस्राभा चतुर्बाहुसमन्विता रागस्वरूपपाषाढ्या क्रोधाकाराङ्कुशोज्ज्वला मनोरूपेक्षुकोदण्डा पञ्चतन्मात्रसायका निजारुणप्रभापूरा मज्जद्ब्रह्माण्डमण्डला चम्पकाशोकपुन्नागसौगन्धिकलसत्कचा कुरुविन्दमनिश्रेणी तनत्कोटीरमण्डिता अष्टमी चन्द्रविभ्राजदलिकस्थलशोभिता मुखचन्द्रकलङ्काभा मृगनाभिविशेषका वदनस्मरमाङ्गल्य गृहतोरणचिल्लिका वक्त्रलक्ष्मीपरीवाहा चलन्मीनाभलोचना नवचम्पकपुष्पाभा नासादण्डविराजिता ताराकान्तितिरस्कारी नासाभरणभासुरा कदम्बमञ्जरीक्लुप्तकर्णपूरमनोहरा ताटङ्कयुगलीभूता तपनोडुपमण्डला पद्मरागशिलादर्शपरिभाविकपोलभूः नवविद्रुमबिम्बश्रीन्यक्कार्यदनच्छदा शुद्धविद्याङ्कुराकारा द्विजपङ्क्तिद्वयोज्ज्वला कर्पूरवीटिकामोद समाकर्षिदिगन्तरा निजसल्लापमाधुर्य विनिर्बद्धितकच्छपि मन्दस्मितप्रभापूरा मज्जत्कामेशमानसा अनाकलितसादृश्या चिबुकश्रीविराजिता कामेशबद्धमाङ्गल्य सूत्रशोभितकन्धरा कनकाङ्गदकेयूरा कमनीयभुजान्विता रत्नग्रैवेयचिन्ता कलोलमुक्ताफलान्विता कामेश्वरप्रेमरत्नमणिप्रतिपनस्तनी नाभ्यालवालरोमाली लताफलकुचद्वयी लक्षरोमलताधारतासमुन्नेयमध्यमा स्तनभारतलन्मध्या पट्टबन्धवलित्रया अरुणारुणकौस्तुम्भवस्त्रभास्वत्कटीतटी रत्नकिङ्किणिकारम्यरशनादामभूषिता कामेशज्ञातसौभाग्यमार्दवोरुद्वयान्विता माणिक्यमुकुटाकार जानुद्वयविराजिता इन्द्रगोपपरिक्षिप्तस्मरत्तूर्णाभजङ्गिका गूढगुल्फा कूर्मपृष्ठा जयिष्णुप्रपदान्विता नखदीधितिसञ्चन्ना नमज्जनतमो गुणा पदद्वयप्रभाजाला पराकृतसरोरुहा सिञ्जानमणिमञ्जीरमण्डितश्रीपदाम्बुजा मरालीमन्दगमना महालावण्यशेवधी सर्वारुणानवद्याङ्गी सर्वाभरणभूषिता शिवकामेश्वराङ्कस्था शिवा स्वाधीनवल्लभा सुमेरुमध्यशृङ्गस्था श्रीमन्नगरनायिका चिन्तामणिगृहान्तस्था पञ्चब्रह्मासनस्थिता महापद्माटवी संस्था कदम्बवनवासिनी सुधासागरमध्यस्था कामाक्षी कामदायिनी देवर्षिगणसङ्घाता स्तूयमानात्मवैभवा भण्डासुरवधोद्युक्ता शक्तिसेना समन्विता सम्पत्करी समारूढ सिन्धुरव्रजसेविता अश्वारूढाधिष्ठिताश्वकोटिकोटिभिरावृता चक्रराजरथारूढा सर्वायुधपरिष्कृता गेयचक्ररथारूढा मन्त्रिणी परिसेविता गिरिचक्ररथारूढा दण्डनाथा पुरस्कृता ज्वालामालिनिकाक्षिप्तवह्निप्राकारमध्यगा भण्डसैन्यवदोद्युक्ता शक्तिविक्रमहर्षिता नित्यापराक्रमाटोपा निरीक्षणसमुत्सुका भण्डपुत्रवधोद्युक्ता बाला विक्रमनन्दिता मन्त्रिण्यम्बा विरचिता विषङ्गवदतोषिता विशुक्रप्राणहरणा वाराही वीर्यनन्दिता कामेश्वरमुखालोका कल्पितश्रीगणेश्वरा महागणेशनिर्भिन्ना विघ्नयन्त्रप्रहर्षिता भण्डासुरेन्द्रनिर्मुक्ता शस्त्रप्रत्यस्त्रवर्षिणी कराङ्गुलिनखोत्पन्ना नारायणदशाकृतिः महापाशुपतास्त्राग्नि निर्दग्धासुरसैनिका कामेश्वरास्तनिर्दग्धा सभण्डासुरशून्यका ब्रह्मोपेन्द्रमहेन्द्रादि देवसंस्तुतवैभवा हरनेत्राग्निसन्दग्धा कामसञ्जीवनौषधिः श्रीमद्वाग्भवकूटैका स्वरूपमुखपङ्कजा कण्ठादःकटिपर्यन्ता मध्यकूटस्वरूपिणी शक्तिकूटैकतापन्ना कट्यदोभागधारिणी मूलमन्त्रात्मिका मूलकूटत्रयकलेवरा कुलामृतैकरसिका कुलसङ्केतपालिनी कुलाङ्गना कुलान्तस्था कौलिनी कुलयोगिनी अकुलासमयान्तस्था समयाचारतत्परा मूलाधारैकनिलया ब्रह्मग्रन्थिविभेदिनी मणिपूरान्तरुदिता विष्णुग्रन्थिविभेदिनी आज्ञाचक्रान्तरालस्था रुद्रग्रन्थिविभेदिनी सहस्राराम्बुजारूढा सुधासाराभिवर्षिणी तडिल्लता समरुचि षट्चक्रोपरि संस्थिता महाशक्ति कुंडलिनी विसदन्तुतनीयसी भवानी भावनागम्या भवारण्यकुठारिका भद्रप्रिया भद्रमूर्तिर्भक्त सौभाग्यदायिनी भक्तिप्रिया भक्तिगम्या भक्तिवश्या भयापहा शाम्भवी शारदाराध्या शर्वाणी शर्मदायिनी शांकरी श्रीकरी साध्वी शरच्चंद्र निभादना शातोदरी शांतिमती निराधारा निरंजना निर्लेपा निर्मला नित्या निराकारा निराकुला निर्गुणा निष्कला शांता निष्कामा निरुपप्लवा नित्यमुक्ता निर्विकारा निष्प्रपंचा निराश्रया नित्यशुद्धा नित्यबुद्धा निरवद्या निरंतरा निष्कारणा निष्कलंका निरुपाधिर्निरीश्वरा नीरागारागमधनी निर्मदा मदनाशिनी निश्चिंता निरहंकारा निर्मोहा मोहनाशिनी निर्ममामवताहंत्री निष्पापा पापनाशिनी निष्क्रोधा क्रोधशमनी निर्लोभा लोभनाशिनी निस्संशया संशयग्नि निर्भवा भवनाशिनी निर्विकल्पा निराबाधा निर्भेदा भेदनाशिनी निर्नाशा मृत्युमथनी निष्क्रिया निष्परिग्रहा निस्तुला नीलचिकुरा निरपाया निरत्यया दुर्लभा दुर्गमा दुर्गा दुःखहंत्री सुखप्रदा दुष्टदूरा दुराचारा शमनी दोषवर्जिता सर्वज्ञा सांद्र करुणा समानाधिकवर्जिता सर्वशक्तिमयी सर्वमंगला सद्गतिप्रदा सर्वेश्वरी सर्वमयी सर्वमंत्रस्वरूपिणी सर्वयंत्रात्मिका सर्वतंत्ररूपा मनोन्मनी माहेश्वरी महादेवी महालक्ष्मीर्मुणप्रिया महारूपा महापूज्या महापातकनाशिनी महामाया महासत्वा महाशक्तिर्महारतिः महाभोगा महेश्वर्या महावीर्या महाबला महाबुद्धिर्महासिद्धिर्महायोगेश्वरेश्वरी महातंत्रा महामंत्रा महायंत्रा महासना महायागक्रमाराध्या महाभैरवपूजिता महेश्वर महाकल्पा महातांडवसाक्षिणी महाकामेश महिषी महात्रिपुरसुंदरी चतुष्षष्टुपचाराढ्या चतुष्षष्टिकलामयी महाचतुष्षष्टिकोटि योगिनी गणसेविता मनुविद्या चंद्रविद्या चंद्रमंडलमध्यगा चारुरूपा चारुहासा चारुचंद्रकलाधरा चराचर जगन्नाथ चक्रराजनिकेतना पार्वती पद्मनयना पद्मराग समप्रभा पंचप्रेतासनासीना पंचब्रह्मस्वरूपिणी चिन्मयी परमानंदा विज्ञान घनरूपिणी ध्यान ध्यात्र ध्येय रूपा धर्मा धर्म विवर्जिता विश्वरूप विश्वरूपा जागरिणी स्वपंती तैजसात्मिका सुप्ता प्राज्ञात्मिका तुर्या सर्वावस्था विवर्जिता सृष्टिकर्त्री ब्रह्मरूपा गोविंदरूपिणी संहारिणी रुद्ररूपा तिरोधानकरीश्वरी सदाशिवानुग्रहदा पंचकृत्यपरायणा भानुमंडल मध्यस्था भैरवी भगमालिनी पद्मासना भगवती पद्मनाभ सहोदरी उन्मेष निमिषोत्पन्न विपन्न भुवनावली सहस्रशीर्षवदना सहस्राक्षी सहस्रपात आब्रह्मकीट जननी वर्णाश्रम विधायिनी निजाज्ञारूप निकमा पुण्या पुण्यफलप्रदा श्रुति सीमंत सिंदूरी कृतपादाब्जधूलिका सकलागम संदोहा शुक्ति संपुट मुक्तिका पुरुषार्थ प्रदा पूर्णा भोगिनी भुवनेश्वरी अंबिकानादि निधना हरिब्रह्मेन्द्र सेविता नारायणी नादरूपा नामरूप विवर्जिता ह्रींकारी ह्रीमती हृदया हेयोपादेयवर्जिता राजराजार्चिता राज्ञी रम्या राजीवलोचना रंजनी रमणीरस्य रणत्किङ्किणीमेखला रमा राकेन्दुवदना रतिरूपा रतिप्रिया रक्षाकरी राक्षसग्नि रामा रमणलम्पटा काम्या कामकलारूपा कदम्बकुसुमप्रिया कल्याणी जगती गंदा करुणा रससागरा कलावती कलालापा कांता कादंबरी प्रिया वरदा वामनयना वारुणी मदविह्वला विश्वाधिका वेदवेद्या विंध्याचल निवासिनी विधात्री वेदजननी विष्णुमाया विलासिनी क्षेत्रस्वरूपा क्षेत्रेशी क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञपालिनी क्षयवृद्धि विनिर्मुक्ता क्षेत्रपाल समर्चिता विजया विमला वंद्या वंदारुजनवत्सला वाग्वादिनी वामकेशी वह्निमंडलवासिनी भक्तिमत्कल्पलतिका पशुपाश विमोचनी संभृता शेषपाषण्डा सदाचार प्रवर्तिका तापत्रयाग्निसंतप्ता समाह्लादन चंद्रिका तरुणी तापसाराध्या तनुमध्यातमोपहा चितिस्तत्पदलक्ष्यार्था चिदेकरसरूपिणी स्वात्मानंदलवीभूता ब्रह्माद्यानंद संतति परा प्रत्यक्षिती रूपा पश्यन्ती परदेवता मध्यमा वैखरी रूपा भक्तमानसहंसिका कामेश्वर प्राणनाडी कृतज्ञा कामपूजिता श्रृंगार रस संपूर्णा जया जालंधर स्थिता ओड्यानपीठ निलया बिंदुमंडलवासिनी रहो यागक्रमाराध्या रहस्तर्पणतर्पिता सद्य प्रसादिनी विश्वसाक्षिणी साक्षिवर्जिता षडंग देवता युक्ता षाट्गुण्य परिपूरिता नित्यक्लिन्ना निरुपमा निर्वाण सुखदायिनी नित्या षोडशिका रूपा श्रीकंठार्धशरीरिणी प्रभावती प्रभारूपा प्रसिद्धा परमेश्वरी मूल प्रकृतिरव्यक्ता व्यक्ता व्यक्तस्वरूपिणी व्यापिनी विविधाकारा विद्या विद्यास्वरूपिणी महाकामेश नयना कुमुदाह्लाद कौमुदी भक्तहार्दतमोभेदा भानुमद्भानुसन्ततिः शिवदूती शिवाराध्या शिवमूर्तिर्शिवङ्करी शिवप्रिया शिवपरा शिष्टेष्टा शिष्टपूजिता अप्रमेया स्वप्रकाशा मनोवाचामगोचरा चिच्छक्तिश्चेतनारूपा जडशक्तिर्जडात्मिका गायत्री व्याहृति संध्या द्विजवृन्दनिषेविता तत्त्वासना तत्त्वमयी पञ्चकोशान्तरस्थिता निस्सीममहिमानित्य यौवनामदशालिनी मदघूर्णितरक्ताक्षी मदपाटलगण्डभूः चन्दनद्रवदिग्धाङ्गी चाम्पेयकुसुमप्रिया कुशला कौमराकारा कुरुकुल्लाकुलेश्वरी कुलकुण्डालया कौलमार्गतत्परसेविता कुमारगणनाथाम्बा तुष्टिपुष्टिर्मतिधृतिः शान्तिस्वस्तिमती कान्तिर्नन्दिनी विघ्ननाशिनी तेजोवती त्रिनयना लोलाक्षी कामरूपिणी मालिनी हंसिनी माता मलयाचलवासिनी सुमुखी नलिनी शुभ्रुशोभना सुरनायिका कालकंठी कांतिमती क्षोभणी सूक्ष्मरूपिणी वज्रेश्वरी वामदेवी वयोवस्था विवर्जिता सिद्धेश्वरी सिद्धविद्या सिद्धमाता यशस्विनी विशुद्धिचक्र निलया रक्तवर्णा त्रिलोचना खट्वांगादि प्रहरणा वदनैकसमन्विता पायसान्न प्रिया त्वक्स्था पशुलोक भयंकरी अमृतादि महाशक्ति समृत अडाकिनीश्वरी अनाहताब्ज निलया श्यामा भावदनद्वया दंशोज्ज्वलाक्षमालादि धरा रुधिर संस्थिता कालरात्र्यादिशक्त्योगा वृता स्निग्धौधन प्रिया महावीरेन्द्र वरदा राकिन्यम्बा स्वरूपिणी मणिपूराब्ज निलया वदनत्रय संयुता वज्रादिकायुधोपेता डामर्यादिभिरावृता रक्तवर्णा मांसनिष्ठा गुडान्न प्रीतमानसा समस्त भक्त सुखदा लाकिन्यम्बा स्वरूपिणी स्वाधिष्ठानाम्बुजगता चतुर्वक्त्र मनोहरा शूलाद्यायुध संपन्ना पीतवर्णातिगर्विता मेदो निष्ठा मधुप्रीता बंधिन्यादिसमन्विता दध्यन्नासक्त हृदया काकिनी रूपधारिणी मूलाधाराम्बुजारूढ़ा पंचवक्त्रास्ति संस्थिता अंकुशादि प्रहरणा वरदादिनिषेविता मुद्गौदनासक्तचित्ता साकिन्यम्बा स्वरूपिणी आज्ञाचक्राब्ज निलया शुक्लवर्णा षडानना मज्जा संस्था हंसवती मुख्य शक्ति समन्विता हरिद्रानैक रसिका हाकिनी रूपधारिणी सहस्रदल पद्मस्था सर्ववर्णोपशोभिता सर्वायुधधरा शुक्ला संस्थिता सर्वतोमुखी सर्वौदन प्रीतचित्ता याकिन्यम्बा स्वरूपिणी स्वाहा स्वधा मतिर्मेधा श्रुतिस्मृतिरनुत्तमा पुण्यकीर्तिः पुण्यलभ्या पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना पुलोमजार्चिता बन्धमोचनी बन्धुरालका विमर्शरूपिणी विद्या वेद आदिजगत्प्रसूः सर्वव्याधि प्रशमनी सर्ववृत्युनिवारिणी अग्रगण्या चिन्त्यरूपा कलिकल्मषनाशिनी कात्यायनी कालहन्त्री कमलाक्षनिषेविता ताम्बूलपूरितमुखी दाडिमी कुसुमप्रभा मृगाक्षी मोहिनी मुख्या मृडा निमित्ररूपिणी नित्यतृप्ता भक्तनिधिर्नियन्त्री निखिलेश्वरी मैत्र्यादिवासनालभ्या महाप्रलयसाक्षिणी पराशक्तिः प्रज्ञानघनरूपिणी माध्वीपानालसामत्ता मातृकावर्णरूपिणी महाकैलासनिलया मृणालमृदुर्लता महनीया दयामूर्तिर्महासाम्राज्यशालिनी आत्मविद्या महाविद्या श्रीविद्या कामसेविता श्रीषोडशाक्षरी विद्या त्रिकूटा कामकोटिका कटाक्षकिङ्करी भूता कमला कोटिसेविता शिरस्थिता चन्द्रनिभा भालस्तेन्द्रधनुप्रभा हृदयस्थार विप्रख्या त्रिकोणान्तरदीपिका दाक्षायनी दैत्यहंत्री दक्षयज्ञविनाशिनी दरान्दोलित दीर्घाक्षी दरहासोज्ज्वलन्मुखी गुरुमूर्तिर्गुणनिधिर्गोमाता गुहजन्मभूः देवेशी दण्डनीतिस्था दहराकाशरूपिणी प्रतिपन्मुख्यराकान्ता तिथिमण्डलपूजिता कलात्मिका कलानाथा काव्यालापविनोदिनी सचामररमावाणी सव्यदक्षिणसेविता आदिशक्तिरमेयात्मा परमा पावनाकृतिः अनेककोटिब्रह्माण्ड जननी दिव्यविग्रहा क्लीङ्कारी केवला गुह्या कैवल्यपददायिनी त्रिपुरा त्रिजगद्वन्द्या त्रिमूर्तिस्तशेश्वरी त्र्यक्षरी दिव्यगन्धाढ्य सिन्दूरतिलकाञ्चिता उमाशैलेन्द्रतनया गौरी गन्धर्वसेविता विश्वगर्भा स्वर्णगर्भा वरदा वागधीश्वरी ध्यानगम्या परिच्छेद्या ज्ञानदा ज्ञानविग्रहा सर्ववेदान्तसंवेद्या सत्यानन्दस्वरूपिणी लोपामुद्रार्चिता लीला क्लुप्तब्रह्माण्डमण्डला अदृश्यादृश्यरहिता विज्ञात्री वेद्यवर्जिता योगिनी योगदा योग्या योगानन्दा युगन्धरा इच्छाशक्ति ज्ञानशक्ति क्रियाशक्ति स्वरूपिणी सर्वाधारा सुप्रतिष्ठा सदसद्रूपधारिणी अष्टमूर्तिरजा जैत्री लोकयात्रा विधायिनी एकाकिनी भूमरूपा निर्द्वैताद्वैतवर्जिता अन्नदा वसुधा वृद्धा ब्रह्मात्मैक्यस्वरूपिणी बृहती ब्राह्मणी ब्राह्मी ब्रह्मानंदा बलिप्रिया भाषा रूपा बृहत्सेना भावा भाव विवर्जिता सुखाराध्या शुभकरी शोभना सुलभा गतिः राजराजेश्वरी राज्यदायिनी राज्यवल्लभा राजत्कृपा राजपीठ निवेशद निजाश्रिता राज्यलक्ष्मी कोशनाथ चतुरंगबलेश्वरी साम्राज्यदायिनी सत्यसंधा सागरमेखला दीक्षिता दैत्यशमनी सर्वलोकवशंकरी सर्वार्थदात्री सावित्री सच्चिदानंदरूपिणी देशकाला परिच्छिन्ना सर्वगा सर्वमोहिनी सरस्वती शास्त्रमयी गुहांबा गुह्यरूपिणी सर्वोपाधि विनिर्मुक्ता सदा शिवपतिव्रता संप्रदायेश्वरी साध्वी गुरुमंडलरूपिणी कुलोत्तीर्णा भगाराध्या माया मधुमतीमही गणांबा गुह्यकाराध्या कोमलांगी गुरुप्रिया स्वतंत्रा सर्वतंत्रेशी दक्षिणामूर्तिरूपिणी सनकादिसमाराध्या शिवज्ञानप्रदायिनी चित्कलानंदकलिका प्रेमरूपा प्रियंकरी नामपारायण प्रीता नंदी विद्यानटेश्वरी मिथ्या जगदधिष्ठाना मुक्तिदा मुक्तिरूपिणी लास्य प्रिया लयकरी लज्जारंभादिवंदिता भवदा वसुधा वृष्टि पापारण्यदवानला दौर्भाग्यतूल वातूल द्वांतर विप्रभा भाग्याब्धिचंद्रिका भक्त चित्तकेकी घनागना रोग पर्वत दंबोलिर्मृत्युदारु कुठारिका महेश्वरी महाकाली महाग्रासा महाशना अपर्णा चंडिका चंडमुंडासुर निषूदिनी क्षराक्षरात्मिका सर्वलोकेशी विश्वधारिणी त्रिवर्गदात्री सुभगा त्र्यंबका त्रिगुणात्मिका स्वर्गापगदा शुद्धा जपा पुष्पा निभाकृतिः ओजोवती द्युतिधरा यज्ञरूपा प्रियव्रता दुराराध्या दुरादर्शा पाटली कुसुमप्रिया महती मेरुनिलया मंदार कुसुमप्रिया वीराराध्या विराट रूपा विरजा विश्वतोमुखी प्रत्यग रूपा पराकाशा प्राणदा प्राणरूपिणी मार्तांड भैरवाराध्या मंत्रिणी न्यस्तराज्यदूः त्रिपुरेशी जयत्सेना निस्त्रैगुण्या परापरा सत्यज्ञानानंद रूपा सामरस्य परायणा कपर्दिनी कलामाला कामधुक्कामरूपिणी कलानिधि काव्यकला रसज्ञ रससेवदिः पुष्टा पुरातना पूज्या पुष्करा पुष्करेक्षणा परंज्योति परंधामा परमा अणुः परात्परा पाशहस्ता पाशहंत्री परमंत्र विभेदिनी मूर्ता मूर्ता नित्यतृप्ता मुनिमानसहंसिका सत्यव्रता सत्यरूपा सर्वांतर्यामिनी सती ब्रह्माणी ब्रह्मजननी बहुरूपा बुधार्चिता प्रसवित्री प्रचंडाज्ञा प्रतिष्ठा प्रकटाकृतिः प्राणेश्वरी प्राणदात्री पंचाशत्पीठरूपिणी विशृंखला विविक्तस्था वीरमाता वियत्प्रसूः मुकुंदा मुक्तिनिलया मूलविग्रहरूपिणी भावज्ञा भवरोगग्नि भवचक्रप्रवर्तिनी छंदस्सारा शास्त्रसारा मंत्रसारा तलोदरी उदारकीर्तिरुद्धाम वैभवाभरणरूपिणी जन्म मृत्युजरातप्ता जना विश्रांतिदायिनी सर्वोपनिषदुद्घुष्टा शांत्यातीता कलात्मिका गंभीरा गगनांतस्था गर्भिता गानलोलुपा कल्पनारहिता काष्ठा कांता कांतार्धविग्रहा कार्यकारण निर्मुक्ता कामकेली तरंगिता कनत कनकताटंका लीला विग्रहधारिणी अजाक्षय विनिर्मुग्धा क्षिप्र प्रसादिनी अंतर्मुख समाराध्या बहिर्मुख सुदुर्लभा त्रयी त्रिवर्ग निलया त्रिस्था त्रिपुरमालिनी निरामया निरालंबा स्वात्मा रामा सुधाश्रुति संसार पंक निर्मग्ना समुद्धरण पंडिता यज्ञप्रिया यज्ञकर्त्री यजमान स्वरूपिणी धर्माधारा धनाध्यक्षा धनधान्य विवर्धिनी विप्रप्रिया विप्ररूपा विश्वभ्रमणकारिणी विश्वग्रासा विद्रुमाभा वैष्णवी विष्णुरूपिणी अयो निर्यो निलया कूटस्था कुलरूपिणी वीरगोष्ठी प्रिया वीरा नैष्कर्म्यानादरूपिणी विज्ञानकलनाकल्या विदग्धा वैन्दवासना तत्वाधिका तत्वमयी तत्वमर्थस्वरूपिणी सामगान प्रिया सौम्या सदाशिवकुटुम्बिनी सव्यापसव्य मार्गस्था सर्वापद्विनिवारिणी स्वस्था स्वभाव मधुरा धीरा धीर समर्चिता चैतन्यार्घ्य समाराध्या चैतन्य कुसुम प्रिया सदोदिता सदा तुष्टा तरुणादित्यपाटला दक्षिणा दक्षिणाराध्या धरस्मेरमुखाम्बुजा कौलिनी केवलानर्घ्या कैवल्यपददायिनी स्तोत्र प्रिया स्तुतिमती श्रुति संस्तुत वैभवा मनस्विनी मानवती महेशी मंगलाकृति विश्वमाता जगद्धात्री विशालाक्षी विरागिनी प्रगल्भा परमोदारा परामोदा मनोमयी व्योमकेशी विमानस्था वज्रिनी वामकेश्वरी पंचयज्ञ प्रिया पंचप्रेत मंचाधिशायिनी पंचमी पंचभूतेशी पंचसंख्योपचारिणी शाश्वती शाश्वतैश्वर्या शर्मदा शंभुमोहिनी धरा धरसुता धन्या धर्मिणी धर्मवर्धिनी लोकातीता गुणातीता सर्वातीता शमात्मिका बंधुकुसुम प्रख्या बाला लीना विनोदिनी सुमंगली सुखरी सुवेशा अड्या सुवासिनी सुवासिन्यर्चन प्रीता शोभना शुद्धमानसा बिंदुतर्पण संतुष्टा पूर्वजा त्रिपुरांबिका दशमुद्रा समाराध्या त्रिपुरा श्रीवशंकरी ज्ञानमुद्रा ज्ञानगम्या ज्ञानज्ञेय स्वरूपिणी योनिमुद्रा त्रिखंडेशी त्रिगुण अंबा त्रिकोणगा अनघात्पुत चारित्र्य वांछिता अर्थप्रदायिनी अभ्यासादिशयज्ञाता षडध्वातीतरूपिणी अव्याज करुणामूर्तिरज्ञानध्वांत दीपिका आबालगोपविदिता सर्वानुल्यंघशासना श्रीचक्रराज निलया श्रीमत् त्रिपुरसुंदरी श्री शिवा शिवशक्त्यैक्य रूपिणी ललितांबिका एवं श्री ललिता देव्या नाम साहस्रकं जगुः इति श्री ब्रह्मांड पुराणे उत्तरखंडे श्री हयग्रीवागस्त्य संवादे श्री ललिता सहस्रनाम स्तोत्र कथनं संपूर्णम्. I'll be back in a minute. Hari Om. Can you all hear me clearly? Okay. Let us start with the invocation of Bhagavatam. सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः. यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतः चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः. तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयः यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि. धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमः निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्. श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यते प्रकृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तक्षणात्. निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. So in the last few chapters we saw how or why there was kind of a spardha, a competition that Daksha Prajapati took very personally against his own daughter's husband, who happened to be Bhagavan Shiva himself. And the reasons were stated as to why it was unfounded and foolish in a way. Now, on the other hand, he was organizing several of these yajnas, and there is a special invitation, uninvited invitation, that these people should be given their yathochita bhaga. See, it is very difficult to understand this concept of yathochita bhaga, where supposing there is something very unique or something very precious, something very sanctified. When you receive a prasad, for example, you take it home and make sure that you are distributing it with everyone in the family. That is something which is to be shared with everyone. Or you find a very rare, unique fruit which you have grown up eating, and you saw it, and it's not like you pounce on it, finish it, and say, now I am satisfied. No, you take it home and share it with everyone, right? Yathochita bhaga. Similarly, in the yajna, there are these devatas. When they say 31 crores of devatas, it is foolishness galore, where 31 koti. Koti is translated as crores, one meaning. The other meaning which is pertinent here is varieties, categories of devatas. Ashtavasu, 8 vasus. Then Dasha Aditya. Then Ekadasha Rudra and 2 Ashwini Kumaras. So with that, it makes it the count. Those are the categories. But then we interpret it and we think that that interpretation is right, that these are that many, Hindus have that many crores of gods. Well, we can justify, but that is not the case here. So these devatas who are taking care of various aspects of this creation and its smooth running, for their effort there is a bhaga from the yajna which is given unto them. Then the Trimurti are Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. They get the other major chunk. Then there is the Indradi Devatas, who is the Maharaja of the entire Devatas. So all of them, under Indra there is another segment of people, Devatas. They are like Agni, Varuna, Ityadi, Vayu, Ityadi. They also get their share. But a major chunk, major percent of the yajna goes to the Trimurtis. Now Daksha Prajapati, out of his audacity, he removed the entire segment of the Shaiva Sampradaya, and because he had his personal animosity towards his son-in-law Bhagavan Shiva, and said, we will not offer anything to them. Jaisi karni vaisi bharni. As you sow, so you reap. Many of us forget that. We act according to our egotistical instant reactions, and we think we are entitled to react that way. That it is okay to react that way. So Daksha Prajapati and his reactions went into a completely steroid mode. Vinashakale viparita buddhi. And we think very justified and entitled to that justification. So what happened with that steroid mode is what is dealt with in this chapter, but with a slight variation, how Sati Devi also gets impacted by it, by the thought influence. Sada विद्विषतोरेवं कालो वै ध्रियमाणयोः जमातुश्वशुरस्यापि जमातुः श्वशुरस्यापि. Though there is Jamatuhu, the son-in-law, Jamatu. So the son-in-law and the father-in-law, there was this unseeming Vairudhyam. There is some kind of a enmity between both of them. Sumahan Nati Chakrame. Now, while this was happening, Brahmaji appoints this Daksha as the leader of these Prajapatis. There are several Prajapatis. Daksha is made the Mukhya Prajapati. Mukhya Prajapati, the lord of these Prajapatis. So therefore he became the Daksha Prajapati, the Adhipati of the Prajapatis. So he started doing several yajnas, of which there was one particular yajna which Vajapeya yajna and then Brihaspati Sava yajna. So in that he announced that everybody is welcome except Shiva and his Anuchara. Anuchara, those who are the followers, they are not invited. The rest of you can come. So in that Yajnotsava, there were the Brahmarshi, then there were the Devarshi, Pitruganas, Devata Ganas, and with all the possible different combinations of devatas out there with their wives on their ratha or on their vimana. I am not making it up. It says in the 6th shloka, Vrajanti sarvatodibhyaha upadeva varastriyaha vimanayana sapreshtaha nishkakanthi suvasasaha. So all these devatas, Yaksha, Gandharva, Kinnara, Kimpurusha, they in their individual vimana, all decked up for this special yajna. Their 9-yard saris, and then the Chudamani, then there is Surya Chudamani, Chandra Chudamani, then there is a beaded thing hanging there, then there was the ear hanging, whatever you call that, that, and then hara, and then money, and then all decked up with flowing silken cloth, and in their open air vimana they were traveling. Many of them, to reach to Daksha Prajapati, had to fly over Kailasa. Ayyo. And Sati Devi was in Kailasa watching, and probably she overheard, or probably she was asked by the flying beautiful Gandharva, Yaksha, Kimpurusha. Are Sati, you will get delayed. Why aren't you ready? We are going to your dad's home. Okay. Ciao. See you soon. We'll meet you there. Things like that. Must have happened. So Sati Devi goes to the inner chamber where Bhagavan Shiva is seated, and she says, Prajapatehe te shvasurasya sampratam niryapito yajna mahotsavah kilah. Hey Bhagavan, O Shiva, your Shvasura, my father, he is doing this Brihaspati Sava Yajna, and all the devatas, Yaksha, Kinnara, Kimpurusha, Gandharva, all of them are going, and it will be such a festive moment. And in any way, I have not had the opportunity to go to my Maika. Maika means Maika, my mother's place. And all my sisters with their husbands and with their entourage of people, they would also come. I have not met them also. My mother also, so lovingly she'll be. So if you permit me, I would want to go participate. Plus, there is this Mahayajna. It will be such a blessing to be taking part in this Mahayajna. So please, let us go. Anyway, she says in the 13th shloka, Anahuta apyabhiyanti sauhridam. Anahuta. Though you have not been invited, there are these places that you can go uninvited and you are welcome. What are those? Bhartuhu guroho deha kritascha ketanam. To the living abodes of husband, teacher, and your parents. These are the three places where you should find refuge, even though you are not personally invited. And this happens to be my parents' place. You are all knowing. You know my heart's desire. Can we please? So to this, Maitreya Ji says, Evam Giritrah Priyaya Bhibhashitaha. Very lovingly, Sati Ji in this way requested Bhagavan Shiva that, hey Bhagavan, you are Trikalagnya, you are Sarvavyapi, you are unborn, you always sit in this meditative posture. कभी तो निकलो, कहीं तो लॉन्ग ड्राइव जाएंगे, थोड़ी सी always in this meditative equipoise, कभी तो चलो ना. So she requested. So Bhagavan Shiva very lovingly sits her down and thus spoke Bhagavan. What did he say? Hey Shobhane, the most well-versed, well-established one, or oh beautiful one, either ways. Though you say that anahuta apyabhiyanti bandhushu, that to mother's place you can go uninvited, but when they are established in their dehavimana, deha buddhi, And born out of that Dehabhimana, identification with the body, they think themselves as in their arrogance, and that arrogance is displayed quite visibly. And with that dushtata, there is krodha. With that krodha, there is dvesha bhasha, bhasha of not just dislike. The words are filled with hatred. To such places you should not go. And there is this beautiful aspect to understand. This is beautiful shloka, the next one. Vidya, tapa, vitta, vapurvayaha, kula. These 6 things: education or well read, tapa, the readiness to perform austerities, dhana, wealth, then a good sturdy body, then feeling, when you say young at heart, there are people at 40 where they have completely given up. They'll feel older than usual. At 80 also there are people who are youthful in their expression. So that youthfulness and a good kula, your lineage. These 6 become an ornament and a great support to usher. They become a good ornament in those who have sadbhavana. They are satpurusha, meaning their minds are matured, nurtured, and they are cultured. Matured, nurtured, and cultured. To them, they become a beautiful ornaments. But the same 6, if with kubuddhi, those who have the uncultured antakarana, uncultured buddhi, then these 6 become a detriment for themselves as well as for those people around. Even if there is only one of these with the uncultured, it becomes a detriment for themselves and for people around. See, in Hanuman Chalisa, Jaya Hanuman Jnana Guna Sagar. What is the beauty and what is the greatness of Hanumanji, and what is the difference between Hanumanji, a Satpurusha, and Ravana? Both are Jnana Sagar. Ravana is also well read. He is referred to as Ravana Brahma, meaning he is so well read. But then his education, all of that is used only for destructive purposes. And we see that all through his life. He is only Jnana Sagara, but then that Jnana finds its virtue only when it is within the banks of and channelized by Guna Sagar. Jnana Guna Sagar. Jai Hanuman Jnana Guna Sagar. That the antakarana is cultured. In that cultured antakarana alone, this vidya will find a great channelization for something good. Otherwise, the vidya becomes very deceptive. Now, when we hear news and other things, when there are these scams and other things that get in the news we hear. Who are those who are perpetrators of that scam? Usually a very well-read, educated mind has thought through the entire plan. Vidya sampanna, but kubuddhi yukta. But the buddhi is vakra buddhi. So what happens to that vidya? It gets applied in wrong applications. Even if one, it is detrimental to themselves as well as for others. Now there are those who have tapa, austerity, to do severe, rigorous exercise to go through hardships. Tapa means it comes from the root word to heat up, to bear with the heat and to go through that hardship. Now those who go through the military, armed forces, now they go through that for the protection of the entire nation. That is the purpose, that they put their hardship so that they dedicate it for something higher. Now there are those who terrorize. Even for those who terrorize, there are terrorizing training campsites. We keep hearing that, right? So they found these terrorizing campsites and they were training several of these youth, and it was busted, and it was the army or military attacked it. What were they doing there? In the most rugged environments, rugged kind of food, rugged kind of sleep and rest, day in and day out, they are doing a lot of training, kashta. But where is it applied, all this tapas? For destructive purpose. Not for protecting, not for giving a genuinely stable environment, but to destabilize all the stability around. They're dedicating their entire tapobala only for that purpose. They're also dedicating, but for what? For destructive purpose, because their buddhi is vakra buddhi, and they justify it and they think they're entitled to that justification. Tapa. Then dhana. Now we know that for sure. The moment you get a little bit of dhana, paise mein paramatma hai. And once you taste that streak of blood, it becomes very difficult to not have that control and power through wealth. I can throw money and I can get anything, I can buy anything, I can get my way through anything. That kind of mindset, again, vakra buddhi yukta. Then is sudruda sharira. Now most of the bullies that you see, because of the sudruda sharira, because they have the advantage of height and strength and muscles. And where is it used? I mean, it can be used for something good, but then usually we find kubuddhi yukta, it goes in troubling others, disturbing others, creating a havoc around. Why? Because they are blessed with one aspect, sudruda sharira. And then the youthfulness. In the youthfulness, we disregard age, experience, and elderly. We use all our youthfulness in mocking all of it, thinking konyosti sadrusho maya. And it's a very disappointing experience, this youthfulness, because it doesn't stay long. For last 30-40 years, those companies which claim those creams which the companies sell, which claim that youthfulness for eternity is promised, they keep changing models every 6 months. They can't ascertain the youthfulness of their own models. It's a known fact, it cannot be retained. But then everybody goes through this, wherein I am young, charming, beautiful. It doesn't long last. Or it doesn't last long. It doesn't last long. But then we don't want to accept it. Therefore, if somebody even remotely advises or points to that, you are not youthful anymore, which may be the fact. Immediately, I'm young at heart. ठीक है भाई. And then the last one. The last one being the kula, ucha kula. Now, many people may be born with a silver spoon, a golden spoon. But if the vyavahara is close to vyabhichara, a very wobbly mindset, and runs after every vice out there, pretty soon they will be a disaster. They themselves are a disaster for everything around. I mean, we have seen even recently Ambani's, there are two sons. They're not kids anymore. There are two sons. Ambani, the senior Ambani, had two. And he gave so much of property, so much of wealth. Within a turn of 20 years, we see that one has announced for chapter 11, not of Bhagavad Gita, or chapter 12, what do you say? Chapter 11, I think. So, you have announced your insolvency and declared that you are bankrupt. What happened to all that wealth? Golden spoon melted and sold. It is like a worthless investment. And when that wealth, in a good kula that you are born with so much of opportunities, and using those opportunities to strong arm others around, the weak around, and to oppress everyone, that is the dushtata. And if there is dehabhimana and these 6 qualities, then dushtata is quite natural. We keep saying, right? Why does it become so easy for us to adapt things that are negative in nature? Why does it look very natural? Whereas to do something good, something positive, it takes a lot of effort. The key factor, as Bhagavan points out here, is the dehabhimana. Wherever there is dehabhimana yukta sampada, that dehabhimana yukta sampada becomes a detriment, because that dehabhimana is to be justified, is to be nourished, there is a lot of poshana to that. And therefore it is easily, quickly executable. Because most of this, the satiation is at that level, and it becomes easier to satiate. Therefore, we take the paths of conveniences as quickly as possible. And then he says, with the uncultured mind, when these 6 qualities, 6 aspects join in, there is a lot of abhimana, therefore lot of ahankara. Abhimana, identification, and self-worth is pretty high, and the ego is pretty high. Therefore, there is a lot of ahankara that builds in, to such a point that you do not see a mahatma as a mahatma, a sadhu as a sadhu, a guru as a guru. And such dushta buddhi starts speaking ill of a mahatma, a guru, or even Bhagavan for that matter. So he says, and if these people happen to be your swabandhu, your own relative, relationships comes later, their ahankara comes first. However close you may think you are or they are to you. Now, with the close ones, with the relations, this is Bhagavan saying it so beautifully. He says, one can recover with an arrow shot piercing through the body. You can recover through that pain, that scar, you can recover. But the words that come from this kutila buddhi, which is associated, see, uncultured buddhi, which is associated with one of the 6 factors or all of the 6 factors stated above, the ahankara yukta kutila buddhi, vakra buddhi, if they say words that are hurtful, painful, it takes years to recover from that, especially coming from those who are close to us and with this kutilata. One easy word to cop out from that is, oh, I'm sorry, afterwards. But then the harm is already done. That we talk, our talk is not just limited in insulting them, but we spread it as a gossip, we spread it and we speak and tell it to everybody, every forum, Daksha Prajapati, that wherever you said, I kicked him out. You know, that Dushta Shiva, I kicked him out. I don't even offer. What does he think? We are the ones offering and he is the one taking, and the taker should always have the humility. And he is, of course, my son-in-law doesn't even have a humility. Why should I bother to give? You know, the one who has to get needs to have the patratva, and he doesn't even have that patrata. And he would do this kind of censure of Bhagavan everywhere. So he says, those kinds of words, they hit your marmasthana, where you are very vulnerable. It will hit, pierce, and it will hurt you really, really for a very long time. To recover from that is not very easy, O Sati. And then he says, though you are the most loved one to your father, but then fortunately or unfortunately you are married to somebody that he hates more than the amount of love that he has for you. For the virtue of being married unto me, he would say things which will pierce your heart. Therefore, do not go to such place, because you will not get that respect which athapimanam na pituh prapatsyase, 20th shloka, 3rd line. though he is your father, and for him you are the apple of the eye or eye of the apple, one of them. You are the apple of the eye for him, and he loves you that much. But because of his hatred, which is greater than his love for you, the hatred towards me, things that he would say, madashrayat kaha paritapyate yataha, you will feel very pierced. I may not feel it because I am constantly reveling in the Svatmarama. That is the only way to stand above all of these pettiness. But when somebody who is in that realm, in that Shrotriya Brahmanishtatva, even when somebody utters a word of such dvesha, such hatred, they are losing so much of punya that they have done. It is just like an asura who has dvesha towards Bhagavan Sri Hari. Your father has that kind of dvesha towards me, towards that person who is reveling in something highest and established in that. He feels that it's all because of that respect. That is a vyavahara buddhi, which is only at a physical level. For somebody who is established in that self, they cannot accept or deny anything from the outside, because it is the extension of the self, and that self is always worship worthy, and to that there is always that humble prostrations given from inside out. But for somebody who is not established in it, they would want to see the physical action, and that physicality has got no meaning for somebody who is reveling up there. And that physically becomes important because that Dehatma Buddhi is that strong. And then he tells Sati Devi, look, there is this word that Bhagavan Shiva uses in 22nd shloka, the last word of the second line. Vidhiyate sadhumita sumadhyame. The way, like even Bhagavan Krishna addresses Arjuna, Parantapa, He Bharata, Rishabha, to point at what is your strength and how you should abide in that strength. He calls her Sumadhyame. Sumadhyame, the one who should be finding the inner equipoise and balance to understand things better. Sumadhyame. So that which is the nature of those who are the guru, the teacher doesn't cut it. The guru, the one who has established oneself in that Brahmanishtatva, for understanding them, one has to transcend beyond these physical expressions, and you have to understand them from that balanced perspective. Your father has lost that, and he has done. I have not said a word. The funny thing is, as Adi Shankaracharya Ji puts it in Tattva Bodha, when these kinds of Mahatmas are censured, the Mahatma does not have to give a sharp back to anybody who is censuring. their own kukarma rebounds with such a vigorous force that it becomes a detriment for them. And you associating with such people will have a detrimental thing on you. And that too, you are going there uninvited. In Tamil, there is a word, Devaya. Zaruri hai kya? In Bombay Hindi, we say ABMM. Swamiji, it is English. No, it's an abbreviation of that Hindi. A बैल मुझे मार. Inviting unnecessary troubles freely. क्यों? What will happen if you go? That also he says in the last shloka of this chapter. Supposing you do not wish to understand and want to still go, nothing good will come out of it. And when somebody who is supposed to be as close as parents, when they do not respect you, it is as good as death. Yada sasadya maranaya kalpate. It is as good as death. So my advice would be, do not go. But if you still insist to go, shubhaste panthaya. May well happen to you. See, it was not like, Bhagwan Shiva was saying, हमने बोला है नहीं जाने का तो मत नहीं जाने का बस. When I am insisting that, when I said no means no, he is sitting her down and explaining. होता है कभी विधि का बल इतना तेज होता है. Even after having been given a step-by-step explanation, sometimes we are wound up in our own aspects of Hridaya Grantha, knots inside. That those convictions we don't want to come outside. But coming from Bhagwan, kuch to acha hoga, if not in this life, next life. So after having said that, Bhagwan says, I rest my case. Yathechasi tathakur. Whatever you feel is right, please go ahead, do that. See, we cannot make decisions on others' behalf, thinking that it is their decision. Yathechasi tathakur. Now what happens at that point? We all know the story, but the details, we will see it next week. If I can request Sushma Amma. टाइम है आज, कोई अच्छे राग में गाइए.
कोशिश करती हूँ. श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मनु मुकुरु सुधारी परनौ रघुबर बिमल जसो जो दायक फलचारी बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरौ पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरऊ कलेस विकार. जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपी सतिहु लोक उजागर, रामदूत तुलित बल धामा, अंजनी कुमति पार सुमति के संगी, कंचन बरन बिराज सुबेसा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा, हाथ ब्रज और ध्वजा बिराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे, शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन, विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबेको आतुर, प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबेको रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया, सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, बिकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा, भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे, लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुबीर हर्षि उर लाए, रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरतहि सम भाई, सहस बदन तुमरो जस गावै, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावै, सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित ईसा, जम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते, कभी कोविद कहि सके कहाते, तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाय राजपद दीना, तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना, जुग सहस्त्र जोजन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानू, प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, जलधि लांघि गए अचरज नाही, दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते, राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होतन आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे, सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना, आपन तेज समारो आपे, तीनों लोक हाकते कापे, भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे, नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा, संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम बचन ध्यान जो लावे, सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा, और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे, चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा, साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे, अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता, असबर दीन जानकी माता, राम रसायन तुमरे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा, तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे, अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई, और देवता चित्त नूतन धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई, संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई, जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजे नाथ हृदय मह डेरा, कीजे नाथ हृदय मह डेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरन, मंगल मूर्ति रूप, राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, बोलो भाई सब संतन की जय। सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
Thank you so much, Emma. Let us conclude with Shanti Pata. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। Take care everyone. See you in the next satsang.